I'd like you to welcome Biren Gandhi, please.
Thanks, Patrick. Since it's a post-break session and everybody is now well caffeinated and wide awake, we'll just start with a short video, 1.5 minutes. So essentially that was a summary of where we are up to. Like a lot of people ask why Cisco and drones, and typically I think in this session we are going to touch upon like few macro trends beyond just drones. So I'm part of Cisco's strategic innovation group under the corporate strategy office, and what we focus on is typically trends or technologies which are 3 to 5 years out, and they could be the big business for Cisco in the future as well as the overall ecosystem. So as part of that charter, I'm head of incubating the drone business for Cisco. There are a few other colleagues of mine who are taking care of blockchain, augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and a bunch of other topics. So typically what we try to do is a variety of ways, but the biggest benefit we bring to the table is of co-innovation, co-creation, and co-development, and how it all ties, especially in this IoT and digital disruption and all those buzzwords, what we hear about in the outside world around technology. So typically when we talk about IoT, it's overwhelming set of information. People throw in numbers left and right, like X billion devices by 2020, 50 billion, this billion, that trillion numbers of business, all the business is going to grow, and variable markets and all. But if you go underneath, dive below the fluff, the superficial fluff, if you look at it, actually this digital business, as the term is coined lately, it is really transforming the business, especially on these three aspects. One is the process, the business models. Second is the workforce efficiency, and third one is on the personalization of experience. And these are like three examples. For example, first one, so as part of this whole IoT transformation happening, the automation and all, it's expected that 1 million new devices are coming on the network. And obviously being part of Cisco, we care a lot about what is being connected, what is coming onto the network. So 1 million new devices are joining networks of various kinds. So old processes which are highly manual in nature, they need to be refactored in terms of automation, in terms of B2B interactions, and like eliminating or limiting the human component out of those equations. Second part is interesting numbers. 87%, there was a survey done in 40 plus countries throughout the world and some 30,000 plus people. So it's more of a global representation. So 87% of the employees, especially big company employees, are not engaged deeply with what their companies are doing. So that's like really remarkable. Why people are so disengaged, and they're just there for the paycheck or whatever their dependencies are. But other interesting counterfact is when the companies invested a little bit more inside this particular issue and brought down that dissatisfaction level to 10%, their earnings per share, companies' earnings per share jumped to 50%. So it basically kind of almost double. So that's a remarkable fact of engaging the workforce. And the third part is like 2 out of 3 people, 2 out of 3 customers actually got rid of their vendors because of lack of personalized experience. And it's predicted that 9 out of 10 people are going to decide on their service providers, on their vendors, based on how much personalized service they can get. So we are going towards more of a services-based economy, anything as a service, as we are very well familiar with the term. And the whole IoT paradigm is accelerating this digital transformation that we see in terms of monetization, generating new business models, and drones are very central to that idea, like taking care of various new kinds of tasks which were otherwise not possible in the old world. In terms of productivity, increasing the productivity manyfold, 10-fold, 20-fold sometimes, and driving the results better. And the third part is experience, how we are changing the experience, one of the last element why this digital transformation matters. But if we see what are the IoT drivers, IoT is accelerating digital transformation, yes, but what are the drivers for this IoT or Internet of Things? So they are like 4 pillars: people, process, data, and things. In terms of people, even though we call it IoT, Internet of Things, it's all about people. How you are connecting people in more relevant, more meaningful ways. It's a human-to-human interaction at the end of the day. How the processes are delivering the right information, right data sets to the right entity at the right time. How we are taking care of all that. The data, like raw data, is useful, and we are having this data proliferation right now. It's like, okay, lots and lots of data going over, but what's the meaning? Where is the information? Where is the knowledge? Where is the wisdom in that data? How can you learn things from the data? So artificial intelligence is focusing big on learning and self-learning, but if the raw data itself is not accurate, what you learn from that itself is not going to be accurate either. And the fourth part is really about the things, those physical sensors, small things, traffic lights, signals, everyday things which are connecting through the network and coming online and participating in this big ecosystem. Now, if you look at it, drones actually, these are the IoT drivers in action. How? So the same 4 pillars of IoT, people, process, data, things, they are taken care very well by drones. So in terms of people, we are engaging with the collaboration, people to people, over remote connectivity. So if you are remotely inspecting an asset like a windmill or a dam, you can do the live video feed or talk to the ground staff over the video mechanisms or the audio mechanisms or FaceTime and things like that for commercial purposes. But you are engaging with remote staff into taking care of some business need. At the same time, you can take care of the emergency situations or public safety, public security, first responder, the next door, the meeting going on, right? So a lot of situations are tackled by drones today, which are in the public interest, which are connecting people in more meaningful ways. Same thing from processes, like some of the processes which are fundamentally changing, especially look at the insurance industry. With introduction of drones, like aerial mapping and surveys which were not available before, there were lots of manual processing. People had to go out, and now those things are much easier with drones. So processes are also shifting. Data, so layers of optimal processing. So starting with the drone, it could be edge computing. Then you come to the ground station, maybe the fog computing or ground station based computing. And Cisco is a big believer in fog computing. And we in fact have an open fog consortium, which is having 50 plus members, academia and elite institutions, including Microsoft and Dell and many other big companies and many other academic institutions, including Princeton University and all. So fog computing is a new paradigm similar to cloud computing, but edge computing, fog computing, cloud computing, there are various ways of processing data wherever it makes sense. It's not one versus none model. It's like wherever it makes sense, you should be able to process your data. And the things which are like physical objects, sensors, ultrasound, LiDAR, infrared, telemetry, many other sensors which drones are becoming instrumental in providing data and feed it through. So essentially drones are more of moving from novelty to this indispensable business tool according to this PwC report. And as we are all experiencing that the needs of introducing drones in the commercial ecosystems, they are more and more as the day goes by. And if you look at it, the market sizing of the commercial drone ecosystem, like various estimates give different things, different numbers. Some says $21 billion, AUVSI survey had $82 billion plus in terms of economic impact. PwC report had $127 billion, but even if you take a very conservative approach, it's at least tens of billions of dollars of ecosystem. Nobody knows the exact magic number, and we don't need to know either. It's tens of billions of dollars of opportunity, and that's where But the next phase is like, how do you capitalize? How do you actually capture that opportunity? So if you look back a little bit in terms of what happened in the IT side of things, is all the software as a service or SaaS applications, they became big because of the underlying IT infrastructure, because the cost of hardware went down, cost of storage went down, networking became easier with interoperability, and lots of driving factors. So that basically gave birth to amazing amount of revolution, which was known as a SaaS. And if you have to do this drones as a service, like what is the platform infrastructure underneath, which is common, which is interoperable, which is application enabled. So what exactly is that? That's largely missing if we look deep enough. And if you look at the proliferation of the companies in the market, the commercial drone markets, I mean, tons of companies are trying to address different parts of the ecosystem, but none are really actually focusing on the issue at hand. And even if you kind of slice and dice and group this whole ecosystem into 4 parts, on one side, there are manufacturers primarily focusing on the consumer drones, basically for obvious reasons. It's like immediate money-making thing and the survival thing, and it's a growing market, so nothing wrong about that. But that's the focus area. On the other side, there are service providers, which are typically mom and pop right now, but eventually there would be convergence, and there would be big-scale service providers owning fleets of drones that would come into picture. The third side is on the developer ecosystem, which is largely absent because of a non-clear way of monetization. Who is going to purchase where? I mean, if you look at Apple's App Store and the Google's Play Store, typically the developers are very well aware, like what is exactly the monetization path, what is my target audience, how big is my target audience, and lots of other factors which actually provide that necessary motivation for developers to participate in that ecosystem. For drones, the common platform like Google Play Store or Apple App Store, that's missing today, and it's a catch-22. Without the platform, people will not come, and without the people, there is no point in platform. So how to crack that nut? And obviously the fourth and very important aspect is all the regulatory affairs and regulatory agencies, because nobody, I mean, as individuals, we won't like somebody flying drones on our heads, and it might have a slightest chance of falling down from the sky. So I wouldn't like that, nobody would like that, right? So there has to be the right association between regulatory agencies and these other 3 entities in the whole ecosystem. On the positive side, we are seeing more and more use cases growing every single day, from oil and gas and mining to power plants, energy inspections, even nuclear power plant inspections using ground-based robots, if not aerial drones. But lots and lots of areas are gaining momentum in drone usage, public safety, live events. I mean, if you look at any movie right now in the earlier session also, right, any movie or any public event, you cannot imagine the presence or lack of drones presence in that way. Like it's always there, even if it's hidden, but you see the photographic effects, the cinematic shots that you see in movies or in live events, they are not possible without use of drones. So use cases are increasing, but there is something which is missing in order to connect these 2 worlds. And what's missing is this autonomous systems application platform, as Cisco likes to call it, ASAP, because this platform is not only applicable to drones, but to the ground-based vehicles and even submarine vehicles as well in the future. Right now we are focusing particularly on the aerial and ground-based bots. And this is my son, 7-year-old, he actually drew this picture based on my earlier talk, like, hey, what is this ASAP? And I was just describing in a video, and he kind of just got the thoughts and drew the picture. But in reality, it's a very simple combination of few things. It's a horizontal platform that works across various use case verticals. So you don't have to change your setup, your logistics when you are doing a drone experiment in a precision agriculture versus a remote asset inspection versus cinematography. I mean, there has to be a common platform element that binds all those use cases together. It has to be horizontal in nature, should not change by vertical to vertical. Otherwise, like, it's one-off for every single domain. It has to be a drone neutral platform. You should not be locked into a particular vendor, particular manufacturer of drone, something which should work equally well on pre-specified manufacturers or on a DIY drones. Doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter ideally. It should be payload neutral as well. So sometimes you put cameras are most common, but it should be able to tackle other sensors. And Cisco is particularly interested in that area because of the IoT connection earlier I mentioned. So IoT, Internet of Things, there are various kinds of sensors which go in. And in fact, last year we conducted a proof of concept experiment with the city of Dubai, and we mounted like environmental sensors in addition to the camera for not only for the traffic management from the sky, but also capturing the right data, humidity and pressure and temperature in a unified fashion to predict the potential sandstorms in Dubai area, which are very crucial for them, and any early warning would be beneficial to their citizens. So it has to be payload neutral. It has to be somehow application enabled if you want to join forces with amazing talent of developers throughout the world. There has to be clearly defined, okay, here is the SDK, here is how, if you develop your application this way, then you can monetize it that way. So there has to be like clearly defined rules of engagement in order to leverage this most talented community around the world. Oops. FAA compliant, obviously, or any other regulatory agency being a global platform, whatever is applicable beyond United States, the platform has to be compatible. Not everybody will have to be forced to rediscover the wheel, right? It's like, okay, if I'm flying today in US, I need to talk to FAA, I need to talk to airports, I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the checklist items. Tomorrow I'm going to Brazil, I want to fly there. Next day I'm going to go to Europe and want to fly there. So what are the ways to make it common? And the platform should do the heavy lifting instead of the operators or the users or the owners of the drones. Edge fog architecture is sixth element which we deeply care about. As I was saying earlier, we need to process or allow the data processing to take place at wherever it makes sense in the entire hierarchy. Some processing needs to be done on the drone itself while it's flying. Some processing, heavyweight processing, can be done on the ground station, the immediate service point, because you may not have access to the cloud-based infrastructure, especially what we discovered in some of our precision agriculture experimentation, that the reliable and fat enough cloud connectivity was non-existent. And sometimes even power was questionable. So we built ground stations or fog computing stations which were solar powered, and they were able to do the heavy duty computations right in the field. You don't have to go to the cloud for that. But there has to be seamless way of doing the computations wherever it makes sense instead of forcing it one way versus the other. Secure digital connectivity is a no-brainer. I mean, so many hacks are happening, and just one of the biggest threats is like once these flying things are hovering, and if somebody a hacker takes the control over them, then how do you react to that? So how do you tackle the security from the get-go? So it has to be a basic element of that. And data management is obviously from capture, process, transmit, and store data and analyze data. Where do you do that? How do you offer the compliance rules on top of that? Or who owns that particular data? If drone is flying over a geographical region, but its camera is pointing somewhere else, like how do you incorporate all that information in your audit logs to serve? So in summary though, I mean, there are like 4 sections like capabilities about Cisco ASF platform. So capabilities are obvious, like drone to drone or drone to ground or drone to ground connectivity. This integrated sensor platform which takes care of not just the camera but thermal sensors, LiDARs, atmospheric sensors, any kinds of sensor that unifies them in a single interface point so that you can talk to any sensor in a uniform fashion. Secure dynamic connections. Qualcomm released the report of LTE drones yesterday, but the secure dynamic connections, like Cisco has been a long time addressing that based on the routing and switching expertise in the networking domain. So drones would use Wi-Fi if the connectivity is there. It would switch to 3G, 4G LTE if the Wi-Fi connectivity is lost, while still maintaining the secure network connections. And even if that is lost or if it comes back to Wi-Fi, it's a seamless switching. So end user does not have to worry about whether I'm operating in a Wi-Fi zone or 3G, 4G LTE zone, or I'm having terrestrial communications or satellite communications, or like securing every single channel separately. So end users don't have to worry about that by using Cisco's platform. There are on the drone rules and decision making engines. So sometimes like, hey, go to the area where, especially for first responders, like hover around the fire. I mean, that should be intuitive rules. Even before AI, it could be rule-based, very simplistic, very predictable engine that you can put on drones. And application algorithm support and fog, obviously that's a no-brainer. Second component is various integrations. So as part of Cisco's initiative, we are always focusing on going together. So B2B, how we can have B2B integrations. So how we can provide this secure integrations with VPN or Cisco's existing product portfolio. And sometime back we had demonstrated like Cisco Spark, which is like a Slack-like interface collaboration platform. So you can actually manage a fleet of drones using Spark or using speech commands that, hey, drone 1, do something, drone 2, do something else. So it's very easy, intuitive interface while still offering the enterprise-grade security. WebEx for remote control and video transportation. Tropo, Cisco's one of the portfolio assets acquisitions few years back. It's a Twilio-like messaging, text messaging platform, so that's also another part. Jasper IoT connectivity, and we have integrations with Google Home, Alexa, and Mayo gesture control. So many other ways we can make it more powerful, more applicable, more connected through this business integrations. The third component is the ecosystem. How can you address the larger ecosystem? So Open Fog Consortium is one way of making sure people are aware of the benefits of fog computing and kind of leveraging them wherever they are applicable, especially in smart cities and smart communities and those areas. These are very crucial things. Cisco has this DevNet developer program. So even after launching just in 1 year, it's slightly different. These are like enterprise scale developers, not just like launching some simple applications of saying yo to your friends and all that, right? So, but we had, after launching in the first year itself, we had 300,000 developers registered for this program. And we are working with startups, academia partners across the world on various things like workflow integrations. The Cisco Spark platform has Spark bots, which can do like AI type of tasks. When you say, hey, where are you, drone 1? Can you follow drone 2, please? And then it will start following that by simple voice commands or as a Spark bot. So the possibilities are endless in this ecosystem, but ultimate goal is to provide value. What is the business value? Because unless there are money to be made, unless there is some financial piece in the equation, people are not going to move. It's a human nature, and it's a corporate nature is even worse. Like unless you sense big money, companies are not going to move around. So how can you have this ROI-driven B2B relationship with a trusted brand like Cisco, especially when we are working closely with FCC, NASA, FAA, and having a global footprint beyond United States throughout the world. And I particularly love this quote is, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And that's the philosophy behind Cisco's this global innovation center. So we have 9 innovation embassies throughout the world, all outside of US, and we try to work with local startups, academia, local big companies, or idea generators, innovators, and try to make things right. It's like go together philosophy. We know that Cisco has its own limitations. We don't know everything, but we are learning. And we are equally being opportunistic to partner with the right-minded, right mindset individuals and companies to take this mission forward. So finally, I think we would like to invite all to let's co-innovate, co-develop, and co-create together, because that's the only way to win this battle. I don't believe like any single company or any single entity can win this ecosystem. We have to do it together. Thanks.
I liked your mission or your message, that it's got to make money. I mean, that's kind of the thing I'm into. If it's business, it makes money. If it doesn't make money, then it's charity. Thank you.
All right.
Now,
or a hobby.
Do we have any questions? One back here. Hold on.
Thank you for running back here, Patrick. Thanks again, Biren. It's always good to hear you. Could you talk a little bit about we talked about the on-the-drone rules and decision engine and how that plays into autonomy or the autopilot. How does that all tie together in your mind when this system comes together?
Sure. So let me give you an example, right? How on the drone rules engine, let's say like AI is not possible for whatever reasons. There is not enough data and we are far away. How can you have like predictable things? So if you have, say, a couple of sensors equipped on drone, and it's constantly taking measurements, right? So if you sense like what is the indication of fire, so it's maybe a combination of 2 or 3 sensors. One is temperature sensor, other one is a smoke detector, and other one is maybe thermal indicator. So if you can configure your rules that, hey, like sound the fire alarm and notify the fire department directly from the drone if you detect a combination of these three things based on certain thresholds, based on certain levels. So you say, if all of three go off, it means it's confirmed that it's legitimate detection of fire. You can notify appropriate authorities. You can start a WebEx session with a video, live video feed, and keep hovering around that area. And your NOC, the Network Operations Centers, is definitely looped in and directly start to see the feed. You can start recording also if the recorder is not on for capacity or storage perspective. It's not always on, but you can turn it on demand based on triggering by the sensor. So the whole thing basically ties in together on-demand detection of interesting events. All right.
We have time for one more? No?
Well, I would be around afterwards as well, so in case you want to touch base. But thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.